Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone. This is Kay, and I am your LEFORA admin. I'm one of the LEFORA admins out of the many of us. I'm here to share you Q&A question sessions for our international nurses and local nurses who have a lot of questions regarding coming to the United States, what are the process, how to get here, how to land a job, how to approach a contract, all the way how to negotiate it, how the workplace is, how to live in the United States, how to move things. So many questions, the lengthiest process in somebody's life is really like migrating to the United States or migrating to a different country. So I'm here to answer some of the questions that I know as a registered nurse here in the United States who migrated here and signed a contract 20 years ago, right? So I'm going to chunk it down for you guys on all those questions that have been coming to my messages. I still have a lot of questions there, but for now, we're going to prioritize who came first. And again, everything you get will get from here are based from my experiences only. These are not your professional legal advice. These are not your professional financial advice. However, these are advices or general information that I can share to you on the to the extent or jurisdiction that I can, on an ethical way that I can, right? Based from experience as a migrating nurse to the United States back in 2025 when I signed that contract. Um, Immigration processing, consular processing, what my experiences and other people's experiences that were shared in LEFORA, and also how to navigate those job offers, budgeting, based from what you have on the offer, and also my experience as a contract nurse. In the United States as a traveling nurse and also a newly migrated nurse. So every 3 months as a traveling nurse, I sign job offers and contracts. So for me, job offer and contracts are not uncommon for me. So I review them, I look at it, I ask questions if I have to. So these are all based from my experience, and I've also worked in different healthcare settings, right? So from my experience in long-term care facility, rehab, hospital, acute care, level 1 trauma, level 2 trauma, outpatient, surgical center, endoscopy clinics, centers. So I do have a lot of experiences in different settings in the United States. Healthcare setting. As of course, I also did my small business, so I know how to go around some of that. But again, these are not all your your legal advices. So again, please feel free to join in the chat. Let what do you call this one? I want to see where you guys coming from, and if you have questions, please feel free to write in the chat, and I can go over that. The priority of the questions are those people who send me a message ahead, and also the people who's joining right now. So again, my name is Kaye. I'm an admin in LEFORA Filipino Nurses to US. It is the largest Filipino nurse community group in the Facebook with more than 230,000 members. Okay, so we don't welcome everyone in that group. Just an FYI, we screen our members to make sure that they are nurses or key stakeholders or people that will be eventually be able to help us give some information regarding coming or migrating to the United States. Those are your NCLEX reviewers, your IELTS or English exam reviewers, your recruiters, your employers. So that group is composed of many, not only for nurses, it even has immigration lawyers. And shout out, we even have our labor attaché attorney Angela is also there to help us and guide us if we have questions that are related to Philippine migrant worker questions. Okay, so again, please feel free to join the chat and comment where you're from, and if you have questions, feel free to share it as well. All right, so I'm gonna go with some questions. Hello po, I would like to ask if livable na po ba yung $43.65 rate sa California. I got a job offer with Southern California Hospital Hollywood and nilagay po nila doon yung grad program. So for this question, California is expensive, as everybody knows, especially the northern part of California. Though Southern California is not as expensive as NorCal, I'm sure there are spots in the area where it will be more expensive now. So LA specifically is a more expensive area, and the surrounding areas there, mga Malibu, those are expensive places. Um, so again, I'm not very well, hindi ko alam. I don't know the exact location of Southern California Hospital, Hollywood, but but we all know Hollywood is also an expensive area. But exactly where it is what really goes in here is a lot of those expensive area, a lot of nurses don't live there. Okay, you can work there, but you don't need to live there. So a lot of our nurses live outskirts of that. Sometimes they would have to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes. California is well known, especially LA area is known to be very traffic. Even like a 1 mile there can take you like 30 minutes, I think, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, California people. But I've been there and I drove in Hollywood. So I was in the traffic for 1 hour for a night, I think 9 miles. So 9 miles is not really far. Technically, if you're in the highway, it will take you about only 9 minutes to get there, right? So here, 9 mile stretch when I drove from the airport to the Hollywood area was really around that. It took me an hour. Okay, so it's traffic, but I'm sure there are public transportation or if you're gonna work in a night shift, then it's a better. So you can live outskirts. If $43.65 is livable in exactly Hollywood, then of course that will be expensive. But you see around if there's areas where you can look for housing somewhere else, okay, outside. 43 though it's quite low from what I know in California, but because this is a new grad program that you're going, I'm assuming that this is at the entry price, entry salary for that. Also, I'd like you to consider looking at the prevailing wage, FLC data. So if you guys are not familiar yet with the FLC data, so um, what you want to do is go to uh, go to Google. All right, so I'm gonna share a screen. FLC data. There you go. So FLC data, how you do that is you go to Google and you just type FLC data center, and it will lead you to this. This is how you look at if you're just recently being offered. No, so we go the date today, and then you will have to type in registered nurse, and then you go to California. Okay, and then county or township. See if you can find LA. So I see it actually defaulted my screen there. So LA Long Beach. So a $43.65 is actually above the level one prevailing wage. This is the level one prevailing wage is for those without experience, no? So a $43 is above of that. So that is okay. So how do you read prevailing wage? This is just the minimum, okay? The employer cannot give you anything less than that. If you have an experience, you will probably be landing in here if you have an experience in exactly the same job position that you're applying for. You might be considered to be here. So, but if you're going to a new grad nurse program, you might want to consider, I mean, a $43 is above the 34, so that's totally fine. But if you do have experience, no, so even if you're going to new grad nurse program, but if you do have an experience already, so something that you would want to negotiate, because the experienced nurse is 46, 47. So that's something that you want to consider talking with your employer and see if that is negotiable. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. Because ang makikita dyan is when you submit your resume, your work experience with the employer, no, and to the USCIS, when you submit your history of work background, and if they see that you have experience, no, so ask the employer if you're going to be falling on the experience salary. Okay, so or as an immigration lawyer, is this okay to negotiate a higher salary up to 46 because I do have experience. Okay, so but again, just because you're going to a new grad program, that does not necessarily mean that you have no experience. So if you have experience, maybe just because you came from the Philippines, no. So most of the time, the experience outside the Philippines, outside the U.S. can be counted as experience as well. Okay. So just to clarify mo yan sa immigration lawyer and clarify mo sa employer. However, $43.65 is livable when you're single, but if you have family with you, it might be a little bit tight. Okay. Next question is tourist insurance. My mom will be traveling po here, so I remember parang there's like a market where I can see prices or costs. She will stay here for 6 months. So for this, I do recommend looking at um, there are a lot of travel companies. I'm not endorsing, but the most common one that we use is the Alliance. So something that you want to consider. However, there is insurance. No, if you go to Google again, it will lead you to a lot of insurance companies. Pick the one that has the best coverage and reputable company. Okay, don't pick just because it's cheap, but of course, pick the one that you think it has best coverage for the things that you will need. All right. So if you go to Forbes, Consumer Reports, those are the sites where you can get information for that. Okay. Ms. K, regarding a recent post about premium processing of I-140, the email from my agency stated that premium processing is 5K US dollar. Is that too much? Well, that is too much because a premium processing fee is really 2,805. So if 5K ang hinihingi nila, if they're asking for 5K and the real price of it is 2,805, um, you might want to ask why. And there is also, if you go in Google it up, USCIS filing fee. So I can do that for you right now. USCIS filing fee, premium processing. Okay, so I'm gonna share you my screen again, so you can see what we're talking about here. So USCIS filing fee was actually updated nung 2024 February. Okay, so for I-140, so you can see here that it says I-140 migrant petition for alien worker. So if we're talking about this, premium processing fee, then this is it. Okay, so however, there is also an expedited fee if you are in the NVC stage, as far as I know. So double check with your immigration lawyer and double check the price for that, because a 5,000 premium filing fee is very expensive, whereas the real price is 2,800. Okay, for EB3. Yeah, okay, unless you're talking about something else. However, anything else here, I don't see any $5,000. Okay, please have that checked. Again, you can always go to this website. It's the website is directly in the uscis.gov. So there is the G-1055 PDF na what do you call this one? Na PDF file where they write down all the fees. Okay, so let's see if I can pull that out for you. Okay, so if you go to this website, ang lalabas is this one. All right, so this is the fee schedule of the United States Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. Okay, um, let me make it bigger. So if you do Control F and then you put their premium processing, it will lead you to a lot of kasi mahaba to, it's a 56-page document. So make sure that you're using the keywords for search oops, I-140. Oops, sorry. Oh, what did I do? Okay, sorry. Premium processing. Okay, so there you go. So, premium processing will give you that information there, yung mga fees nila. So, that's an I-907. Let me see if I can see 907. So, there you go. Okay, 907 request for premium processing for I-140 is 2,805. So, both documents showed us 2,805. Okay. So just as an example, if your agency recruiter or your immigration lawyer is asking you to pay something for a fee, make sure that you are actually understanding what that fee is for. So a lot of these immigration lawyers or recruiters, you can ask for a breakdown of cost. You know, if they ask you for 5,000, ask them what's the breakdown for that. Okay, because you don't want to give something and then later on, sisingilin ka na naman, no? They're gonna ask another money from you. And then when they say, oh, you need to add additional 2,000 because what you gave us was not enough to pay for fees. And then when you say, what am I missing for 2,000? And then if they say, we need money for filing premium filing fee or filing fee, but then you have a record already saying that we've already paid that at the beginning, right? So if you have an evidence showing that this is the breakdown of the fees that you talk to me that I have to pay, so then they're not gonna scam you, okay? So make sure that you know what you're paying for and always ask for breakdown. Okay, always ask for breakdown. So that's my advice when somebody is asking you to pay fees that are a little bit questionable, no? Especially $5,000, it's not an easy money to get. You're gonna be working for that for almost a month, you know. Of course, tax free, you know, after tax na yun and after other jobs, other deductions. So imagine working for 1 month, um, and then somebody just take it from you just because you didn't pay attention, right? So next is we're gonna present. There's a question here. It's a job offer question actually. All right. So job offer question. So this person sent me a job offer. You know, he said, "What do you think of this, Miss Kay? Here's the summary of the program offer." So this person was being offered a job, and it was a 36 to 40 hours per week. So number one, let's chunk it down. For full-time hours, full-time, it depends on the state. Some states will not require 36 hours a week. Some states does not require 40 hours a week. Some states they don't even have a minimum hours for full time. So when you go to the website and you want to see what is full time hours, okay, in that state, so you will have to double check because we have a lot of nurses coming to us. Okay, we're only given 30 hours a week. Our salary wasn't enough. Okay, so that's the problem because where they came from, let's say they came from Middle East and they have fixed salary for a month. They thought that this high hourly rate was better for them because oh, hourly by hourly, parang mas malaki eh, right? But then at the end, he wasn't per month. She wasn't regenerating that same income from Saudi Arabia or Middle East because in where she landed was a Tennessee, and they're only given 30 hours, right? So again, verify in the state, even though this is a recruiter offer, majority of the time, nurses work here about 35 to 60 hours. Okay. Most that work like Monday to Friday, 8 hours, 5 days a week, that's 40 hours. But sometimes even the lunch break is not even paid. So that's 37 and a half hours. Okay, so I'd like you to make sure when you're being offered a full time job, make sure that you check the state. What is the minimum salary, a minimum hours of weekly hours in that state? And then also make sure that this is in the contract. If they're giving you 36 hours, okay, and then you come here and they're changing it to 35 hours, well, you have an evidence that they promise you 36 to 40 hours. Because hey, if it's less than that, then I wouldn't take it, right? So number two, contract is 36 months. Okay, so make sure that naka-fine print if the vacation is counted here, or if you have, let's say you have medical necessity that you need to take time off. How does it work? You know, will it be counted if you have sick time, or will that sick time will be not counted? And you have to extend that 36 months. So always double check that and make sure those are in your contract. And then, but however, the statement here that says requirements by the USCIS for EB3 immigrant visa, this is incorrect. There's no such thing as 36 months. It's a requirement of the USCIS. So again, if I'm gonna check this, full time is correct. Okay, contract is 36 months, but requirement by the USCIS for the EB3 immigrant visa is false. We have a lot of nurses in here that has what do you call this one, that has 2 years contract. Okay, so we have a lot of nurses in here that are actually finishing their contract in one, a little bit over 1 year, because the overtime actually was counted. So again, if the contract is by hours or by months, okay, this is a discretion by the employer, okay, because I've seen more than that. I've seen less than that, and I've seen more than that too. Okay. Number three, no reimbursement for airfare, housing, medical. The company is giving each nurse 4K relocation bonus, which is calculated higher than a reimbursement. I don't I would agree on the statement that no reimbursement. Okay, that's totally fine. Reimbursements are not mandatory. They're only uh it's a discretion ng employer. The company is giving each nurse a 4K relocation bonus, which is calculated higher than a reimbursement. I would disagree with that because housing here in the United States is already thousands. Airfare is already thousands. Medical, I cannot remember how much a medical is. Okay, so if you're talking about 1 day housing, I would say yes. If you're talking about 1 week housing plus airfare, medical, yes. But we're talking about 1 month housing. 4K is not enough. Okay. So, all right. Kasi, syempre, when you go for a housing, it's gonna be costly, especially when you're gonna be paying for furnished housing, okay, and hotels. So that can be pricey. So depends on the housing. But 4K, it is okay. So you just want to ask, when is this relocation bonus going to be given? Is this going to be given at the time of your arrival in the United States, or at the time that you started working, the actual work date, or the time that you've reported to HR to start your processing? Or is this given after 3 months, or after 6 months, or after 1 year? What happened to me in my experience was, the agreement was it was supposed to be given before arrival to the United States, so we have money to pay for those expenses during arrival. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So then they change it. They're going to give it once you arrive there. And then when we arrive, it change again. It says that they're going to give it once we started working in the hospital. And again, it didn't do. So, and then I said, hey, we started already. When am I going to be able to get the reimbursements, right? So they said you're gonna get it after 3 months, and 3 months happened, it still didn't happen. Okay, so then they change it again. So always make sure that you are very clear with that. Get a written statement. When will that relocation bonus be given? Because this is still happening after 20 years. That we still are receiving feedback from our nurses that the agreement was to be given as upon arrival in the United States. However, those nurses were not given, and the terms have changed, and they're going to give it once they start their job, and then have the manager sign. So that is not really true. So so we had to raise concerns on that. Okay, number four, the employer pays for the initial visa application for the nurse and family. Immigration lawyer of 5K. Well, 5K lawyer is very expensive. Well, if it is a nurse, so that is, premium processing of 5K, of 3K. Again, we saw that premium processing is 2,800. And right now it's retrogression. If this is your initial application of your I-140, which means you don't have a current priority date for EB3, you don't need to pay premium processing. Tell them that is optional. You're not supposed to pay that if you don't want to, okay? And if you don't need to. So right now it's retrogression. You don't need to. So just tell them that I don't prefer premium processing because it's retrogressed right now. Can you give me an updated fee, the amount of pay? Because lawyer processing, yes, of course, there's a lawyer's fee, no? for the immigration lawyer. However, the visa application fee is not even $1,000. And the I-140, there's no additional fee if you're gonna add your derivatives or your dependents in that. Um, so my recommendation is you try to negotiate that, because again, there is no premium processing fee if you don't want it. Okay, and the lawyer fee usually here in the United States for filing is around, I've seen as low as 800, and I've seen as far as 2000. So 5,000 lawyer fee with visa application, that's quite an expensive one. Okay, number five, no breach fee, no breach of contract like others. I wouldn't guarantee this. So this is a false reassurance. This is again, you never know. What if the employer breach your contract by not paying you overtime, right? So that's already breach fee. So the employer, there was a Department of Labor investigation, and the study that they did was more than 80% of the employers in the United States have broken labor laws. So, again, more than 85%. I mean, more than 80%. So that saying that no breach contract like others is just, I think it's I wouldn't fall for that. Okay. I don't know why they even put it there. Just to convince you. Okay, so anything can happen, and until you get here and actually start the job, anything can happen, and then they're gonna see, oh, well, it's not out of our control. Well, it's out of your control. Why are you promising me things? It's like saying to me, you're going under surgery, but I promise you're not gonna lose blood. Um, who will believe that, right? Anything can happen, right? Even you use cautery, even you use all the hemostasis that you have, there's always a chance of bleeding if somebody goes to surgery. Okay. So number six, failure to comply with the 36-month contract, the nurse will be responsible in the reimbursing the employer of the cost of the processing up to 16K. Okay, so we discussed that the fees, right? So you've seen that what do you call this one? The premium processing fee is one of the heavier costs, no? So if you're not going to use that, it's not going to go to 16K. However, fine if there was really 16K that was given because you have 4,000 bonus, okay, relocation bonus, right? So 16,000 minus 4,000 relocation bonus. So you're talking about a total of $12,000 processing fee sa kanila, no? So maybe okay, maybe that's the amount of that they're really costing them, especially with their services. However, I don't agree with failure to comply within the 36 months will be your fault, because sometimes you did not finish a 36 months because there is an employer concern or a problem, or the employer breached the contract. Okay, let's example of breach of contract again. They didn't give you full hours of a week. They've been canceling you. They didn't give you overtime. They're mandating you overtime regardless if the state has mandatory overtime rules or law that it is illegal. So those are the examples, the common examples that employer here in the United States have really breached the contract. So again, I don't agree that you will pay just because you didn't finish, but I do agree that you pay if you resign without cause. Wala kang I'm sorry, yeah, na walang reason. Um, I'm sorry, without cause pala. That you're resigning without a cause, without a valid cause, which means you're just resigning because you want to. However, if you are stopping your work because your employer is not paying you, then you have the right to stop that work because your employer is breaching your contract. But of course, I'm not a lawyer. Before you do that or anything to settle the payment, always reach out to lawyer. Lawyer cost for consultation is, so it's between 250 to 500, to know if you should be really paying that 16,000. Okay, so I don't agree on number six. Number seven, nurse and family will be eligible for medical, dental, vision, life insurance. This is this is valid to all employers in the employees, especially W2 employees. With a certain number of employees in that hospital or facility. So again, nurse and family are always eligible, but it does not necessarily mean that it will be free. So you might have to pay money on that, or you might not have to pay. So what you want to do is ask them, do you have a sample of a copy of your benefits? employee benefits, especially the healthcare benefits and the retirement benefits. Okay. So number eight, you will earn PTO, paid time off, every pay period. Okay, so then you will ask how much will I accumulate every pay period for PTO? And how much will I accumulate? Kasi pwede ang mag-accumulate ng every pay period, every 2 weeks will be 2 hours per pay period, right? So what you want to ask in here is how much will I accumulate every pay period and when am I eligible to use it? Okay, is there any max that I can accumulate? Okay, so those are the examples that you want to ask. Number nine is OT is paid after 40 hours at at 1.5 per hour. So this is incorrect. So the right wording here is OT is paid after 40 hours at 1.5. Okay, not 1.5. Okay, so so the correct here is one half. Okay, one and a half. Sorry, one and a half. So dapat 1.5 per hour. Okay, orientation is paid. Well, you're gonna have to ask how much is the pay for the orientation? Is it the same rate? So the thing is, I didn't see here what your rate is, and I don't see where your location is. Okay, so something that you want to ask, the rate and the location where you're gonna be sent. The job offer didn't mention immigration lawyer of 5K, premium processing of 3K though. Again, premium processing is not allowed for 3K because it's only 2,800 and it's not mandatory. This is all optional. If you want to do it, then do it. If you don't, then don't. Okay. So, but you have to have it in writing that you are opting not, you're opting out of premium processing because it is retrogression right now. Okay, so that's our advice, but please consider talking with the immigration lawyer, and your immigration lawyer has a fiduciary duty to explain to you the effects and benefits of premium processing and the cons of it if it is retrogression. Okay, and they have to answer your question in the best answer as possible. All right, so hopefully that helped with that. Good evening, ma'am. I would like to ask po if do I need to return my dependent's passport to correct her passport number in the visa issued? Old passport number po nakalagay instead sa latest passport. Definitely, if there is wrong information in your visa or passport, you have to always make sure that it's corrected as soon as possible. So please reach out to the consular office and make sure that this is corrected before you fly here because any the discrepancy with that can lead to problem. So please reach out to the consular, to the Philippine embassy. I mean, sorry, U.S. embassy in the Philippines or wherever you are. Reach out to the consular office because they will need to correct that. Okay. Dumating kami dito. This is another question. Dumating kami dito July 2023. Applied for insurance sa Healthcare Gov Marketplace para sa asawa at anak ko. Wala kaming binayaran na premiums that year. Okay, you arrived July 2023, which is already past half the year already. Okay. 2024 came, I didn't renew ng insurance, pero when I check online, may coverage pa din for 2024. So I called them and told them na nirenew daw po nila ang same plan kasi based on our 2023 income. We qualified daw for advanced premium tax credit, so hinayaan ko po and wala din kami binayaran na premiums. By the way, yung income namin 2023 is only 20K. Ngayon po for 2024 filing of taxes, nilagay ko yung 1095A na binigay ng marketplace. I was using TurboTax and biglang pinabayaran sa amin lahat ng premium worth 8K. Nakakapanlumo po talaga. Is there any way na mabawasan po ang mabayaran namin na amount? Magiging total of 12K na yung tax owed namin. That is a lot of money. 12K. If you, this is, I'm sorry that you're going through this. So this is one of the most notorious scam in the United States. You know, health insurance scams. So when you sign up for something and you're not paying attention to that, a lot of, this is not only for health insurance, but a lot of, let's say, apps or purchases that you've done, membership, subscriptions that you've done, and you're not paying attention to that, and you signed a little tiny little lining there that you will agree that they will renew unless you stop, then you really have to pay attention to this because a lot of people fell into the scams. It's this is called, all right, so like you said, your word there is advanced premium tax credit. Okay. If you look it up, advanced premium tax credit scam, it will tell you exactly what they're doing there. So exactly how you describe it. You sign up, you went to healthcare.gov, and you probably communicated with someone outside the healthcare.gov. Okay. So again, this is a conversation that had happened outside healthcare.gov, and because you submitted your name there, these are legit. Okay, this is legit um, business anyway that are listed in healthcare.gov. However, there are businesses who are doing predatory practices where they automatically renew that without even telling you. Okay, so if you look it up, again, advanced premium tax credit scams, you're not alone. Unfortunately, a lot of people fall for this. That's why it's very important to understand what you're signing for, and don't rely on what do you call this one, on a lot of insurance agents, because majority of this, they will tell you things that will benefit them. You know, there's always a conflict of interest if you get advice from them, because the best interest is not you, the best interest is their pockets and the company that they work for. So if you look at here, not only you, this is actually, it says here, tax time triggers fraud alarms for some Obamacare enrollees. Well, Obamacare is also known as those marketplace, healthcare marketplace. Okay, so you will see here what happened is exactly what happened to you. You signed because this agent said that you're eligible for it, and you sign up for it. Okay, now the problem is the next year you were enrolled automatically. You didn't know it was still running, um, and you did not contact that agent. Well, that agent is gone already. He got his commission already. So this is common tactic. They make you sign for things that you should be really paying attention to those. So if you go to advanced premium tax credit scam, if you just simple Google that, there is a lot of scams that's happening, and it's happening to many people. Unfortunately, the best person to talk with this is, because again, premium tax credit, advanced premium tax credit, it's an IRS, okay, topic. And what you want to do is talk with a tax lawyer, okay? See if there's something that you can do with this. And the number two thing that you mentioned is you use TurboTax. When you have things that are more complicated than average W2 income earner, I recommend really sitting down with an accountant, okay? CPA, because a CPA can guide you what are the things you can do. And CPA is not only helpful during the time of tax filing. CPAs are very helpful at just before the beginning of the year. So a lot of CPAs are very busy during the months of December, November, December, because they're reviewing what are the things that they can do at the end of the year, and also at the start of the year, what are the people can do, to maximize their income, and possibly, if possible, legally lower their taxes. So knowing that the end of the year you've only worked here for 6 months, so your income will fall on the lower income, di ba? Kasi annual ang taxes dito eh. However, at the beginning of the year now, the next year, 2024, now you're working 12 months, so your salary will go up higher. So automatically, you will not be allowed or qualified for some of the benefits there. So always make sure that you get information, any tax information that you're getting or tax advice, you reach out to a CPA, okay? Because mahal magkamali dito sa United States. You can make mistakes in the Philippines, it's gonna cost you pesos. When you make mistakes in the United States, it's gonna cost you dollars. And it's not cheap. And why are they not explaining this well? Because of course, when you make mistake, then you owe Uncle Sam, right? I'm not saying that Uncle Sam does not have your best interest. However, I cannot say that is true or that is false. However, it is your due diligence. You should be reviewing. I'm no pinpointing blames in here, but moving forward to this is to fix this, consult a CPA and a lawyer if you see if you can get a tax lawyer, okay, to help you fix this. Tax lawyer consultation is not going to take you $1,000, initial consult. But then if they're going to do something on top of that, then that's your best bet. If you don't want to pay that 12,000, get a tax attorney, okay, because they will have to go through everything that you've filed and see if there is a way to negotiate it down. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but I'm saying, hey, you know what, you're already going to owe 12,000, give it a shot and talk to a tax lawyer, okay, because there might be ways that to figure that out, or and talk to your CPA also. A CPA consultation, again, it's not even going to cost $1,000. So for me, I'd rather spend that money to know if there is a possibility na mapababaan yan. Okay? So just reach out to the professionals. Okay? Again, tax lawyer and also consult a CPA. A TurboTax is cheap for a reason. Um, they can't do anything with that. Okay? Sorry about that's happening, but for everybody's learning, please go to this website, irs.gov, Affordable Care Act, Individual and Families Eligibility for Premium Tax Credit. So to see if before you apply for this um, affordable sorry, tax credits, premium tax credits, so please always review first. Don't sign up for something that you don't understand, because it can really be problematic. So don't worry, don't feel bad, don't feel beaten. I myself had problem with taxes before, because I went to a state that I didn't know that there should be a tax payment for cars, for owning a car. So I came from a state that did not, and then after after years and years from, and I'm in a different state already. The state of Connecticut was chasing after me for not payment of taxes for owning a car, and I'm like, owning a car? So like, so I did not know, right? So a lot, unfortunately, when you are moving, when you're an immigrant, there is a lot of things that you will not know. And even if you've been here in the United States for a long time, there will be, there's still a lot of things that you will not know. So that's where these professionals are going to be helpful at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. Sit down with them and talk, your concerns about taxes, your planning, your budget planning, your retirement, because there might be a lot of things that you're missing. So again, something that you will need a professional expert to pay. You have to pay them, unfortunately. So this is America. You earn and you pay. Earn and pay. Earn and pay. Right? So welcome to America. Um, Alright, so next question. Hello po, Miss Kay. Nakita ko po yung post mo sa LEFORA about ProWith Health and ICP. Isa po sa mga recruits nila, di ko na po ang family ko. Bali, for family of 4 po kami. Anong ma-advise niyo po sa situation ko? Medyo natakot po ako kasi parang daming issues recently na ICP na nababasa ko. Di kaya risky pag tumuloy po kami ng family ko, lalo kasama namin mga anak namin. Badly needed your advice. Well, thank you for reaching out. I know what you're going through is not easy, but I'm gonna tell you this, that there is a case ongoing, so I cannot discuss that really because I'm not a lawyer, and that is an ongoing litigation, an ongoing case yet. So I cannot comment on that, on what's going on with that case. However, this is a general information. No? Here in the United States, anybody can be sued for anything. And it does not mean that it is true or the person being sued is guilty or not. Okay. However, you will see those, what you can do as a person, if there you see some feedbacks or lawsuits with the people or organization that you are with, is first, is it impacting you? How will you know that? So you have to read what are the experiences that they're going through, and see, is it impacting me, or yes or no? Okay. If it's not impacting you right now, then for me, I'll keep moving. Okay. I'll keep moving along. And to be honest with you, a lot of these companies that were called out, they're very careful after they're being called out, or there's a lawsuit. So also, a lot of these good companies, however, if they see negative feedback on them on the community boards, they tend to change their ways. Okay, so there's two ways to see this, and I want you to realize that everything you do comes with a risk. This life is full of risk. It's just a matter of, is it low risk, medium risk, or high risk. Now, when it comes to your situation, is the, if you have kids, then I would assume that you should be going on the lower to moderate risk, and you should not be going high risk, especially when your resources, your money coming to the United States is not a lot, because you don't want to be in a high risk situation when you come in here and all of a sudden there's no job for you. Okay, those are high risk situation. However, if there is an ongoing case, well, again, in America, you are not guilty unless you're proven otherwise. Okay, and I don't know if they're guilty. I don't know if they're not. So there is no verdict on that, and it's still an ongoing case. So if there's an ongoing case, in my opinion, if you're on the process, just stick along. Again, in America, you're not guilty unless proven otherwise. If there are cases ongoing, it's something that it takes a long time. Probably will be here already when that case ends. Okay, so my advice for you is, just do nothing, because again, a case is just a case. It doesn't tell a person or an organization if they're guilty or not. However, if there are red flags that you feel like is happening to you already, so make sure that you create a plan to mitigate that risk. If you see negative feedback, see, is this okay for me? Is this tolerable for me? Is this negotiable or non-negotiable for me? If those things are, you're flexible, well, okay, they're delaying. Let's say an example. No, I'm not saying this company were delaying. Let's just example. A company is delaying the interview dates of the embassy, right? Because they don't have a job. Is that okay for me or not? So there are people who are okay because they're actually in a, let's say, working in a different location that is earning them almost the same price, the same income, and they're with their family. So for them, it's okay, it's delaying lang naman ng konting buwan no. For some people, maybe they're not negotiable onto that because they're catching up with the time, because maybe they borrowed money from somewhere and they need to pay it back, and they need to come to the United States ASAP, and this company is not giving me any time frame. It's like, King, when am I gonna do my embassy interview, right? And they're gonna say, we still don't have a job for you. I'm DQ already. My visibility and priority date is current already. What are we waiting, right? So I need to work there because my family is struggling here. We borrowed money, and the high interest, will kick in after 2 years, and I'm here already waiting for 2 years. No? So there are people who might be not hindi negotiable yung mag-antay. Meron namang ibang tao na negotiable naman, okay lang yung mga nangyayari. No? So again, what you're gonna do is look at those negative feedback, see what the stories are. If there is a case, look at the lawsuit, read the lawsuit, what are the nurses complaining about, and see, are those complaints going to impact me, yes or no? Are they impacting me tremendously? If it's impacting me tremendously and it's giving me anxiety, it's not putting me to bed at night, then it's something that you need to assess. Maybe you're not high risk taker. Maybe your anxiety is very high if it's high risk. But maybe you're okay with low risk situation. So kung low risk is, as long as you can mitigate the risk, then it lowers the risk. Okay, yes, there is a risk like this, but then I prepared this, this, and this, and this, and this. So if that happens, I have something that I have prepared to mitigate them and prevent damages. Okay, to control the damage. Maybe I will come into a loss. Maybe I will have to find a new employer. No, so okay, if you need to find a new employer, if that contract falls through, then arrange already, prepare the other employers' names, the other employer's contact number, arrange your resume, update your resume every day, get copies of your immigration petitions in USCIS FOIA, prepare yourself. Unfortunately, there are things that you cannot control in life, and all you gotta do is pray, right? but there are things you can control. And those are the things that what you do is you call mitigate the risks by doing something proactively. Okay, so anxiety, worries is not going to get you anywhere, but doing something on that worry, it's going to mitigate that risk. Okay, so I don't know again what's going on with that case. I am not a lawyer to discuss it either, but I just posted that case for everybody's awareness because a lot of nurses are involved in that in our community. So I cannot give my opinion on that. However, one thing's for sure in America is if you're not proven guilty, you're innocent. Okay, you're not guilty unless proven otherwise. Okay, so that's just my insight there. New NCLEX passer po, December 2024, and with 1 year bedside experience, still feel quite lost on the next steps. Originally, I was planning to have my license endorsed to Florida because I have family there who are also nurses who are going to secure me a direct hire job. Unfortunately, due to Florida's new 3 year experience requirement, my plans need to change. I have always preferred direct hire, but I've read that during this time of retrogression, it puts us more risk for abandonment. I've had several interviews with direct staffing agencies. So far, I'm leaning towards C because of the many states they offer. However, I have read mixed comments about them. I have been interviewed by P, to which offers direct hire, but the states they offer are limited. Would just like to ask your opinion if C would be worth the risk since I'd like to move forward with my process already. Okay, C is a staffing company, correct? So from this is looks like the staffing and P is the direct hire. Okay, so you want to ask my insight on about this. Abandonment, okay, abandonment or cancellation of job offer is more I mean, it can happen both in staffing company and direct hire. However, it often more common sa direct hire. So again, abandonment can happen both. All right, it can happen in both companies, but it happens more on the direct hire. Now, kung abandonment, rescinding the offer, abandonment, rescinding the offer, or what you call is termination the contract or canceling the contract is on the direct hire. There's also a thing called benching or stalling in staffing company. So what it means by that, so staffing company naman is they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna take you right now. We're gonna offer you a job. They're gonna tell you and they're gonna sponsor you. Okay, from that. Pero wala ka pang facility assignment. What are the two possible things that can happen there? Two possible. Number one is, pagdating mo na priority date mo is current na, wala ka pa din trabaho. Okay, so that is one cons that can happen, possibility that can happen, in equivalent to abandonment to the direct hire. So pag staffing company naman, pwede mangyari na ganun na current ka na, 1 year ka ng current, wala ka pa ring trabaho dito sa United States. So which means was, ang ginawa sa'yo, pooling. Okay? So there's no abandonment, but there is a pooling, which means makakaalis ka ba rin? The answer is no. Okay, and what's worse is what's happening right now. We have a lot of feedback from our nurses that their I-140 that was filed without facility was actually denied. Okay, so what happened was pumunto yung mga nurses sa embassy interview, and then nakita na embassy interviewer na wala silang facility assignment, hindi sila binigyan ng visa. And then some of them were 221G. Okay? Some of them, 221G na 1 year na hanggang ngayon wala pa rin. Okay? Yung iba naman, hindi na pinapunta ng embassy interview hanggat walang assignment. Okay? And there was actually a post of the the US Embassy in the Philippines about that. You cannot come to the embassy interview kung wala kang or kulang ang documents mo. And one of the most common document that they miss is they cannot show where they're gonna be going. Okay, so para tong boyfriend eh, no? Ay, para bang asawa mo to, no? Parang asawa, naghiwalay kayo. Sino yung mas okay na mag-asawa na naghiwalay? Yung separated lang pero hindi naman legally annulled o yung actually annulled? Kasi yung legally annulled, pwede siya mag-move on eh. No? You can move on, find a new person, get married again. But yung separated lang, hindi, ang dami mo pa ring ano yun, you cannot move on. You're relying on this person because, oh, when I have to buy a property now. Problema ko, married pa din ako, pero hiwalay naman na kami. Eh, ngayon ang problema ko, yung property na bibilin ko, it has to be under both of our names, right? So now, if I buy something, it has to be him with and me too on that, right? So if you're married but you're separated, it's like that. Tali ka pa din. So, kahit na gusto mong kumawala, kasi wala naman nangyayari, you're still tied to it. So again, abandonment can happen in direct hire. But the problem is, if you've been abandoned, get a release paper, then let you go. Okay, and then you look for a new employer. However, when you're tied in as a staffing company that cannot promise you a facility, that is a problem because you might be waiting for a long time. However, there are people who was able to come here 2020, 21, 22 na wala silang facility because it was COVID crisis and the priority of the United States was really bringing healthcare as possible. And there's FEMA contracts, there's crisis everywhere, send them everywhere. So it's like totally fine. Like it's overwhelmed. Well, technically not okay, but that's not the policy. But we needed something. It was a crisis. So a lot of people came here without that. But 2025 is not anymore COVID crisis. 2024 is not anymore COVID crisis. So the embassy is very strict, making sure that all your documents are complete. And how bad was it back then in 2020, 21, 22? Even those people na walang notarized job offer went to the embassy interview. They even got approved. Why? Because we're crisis, right? We're in crisis. We need nurses. But now there's not big demand right now. We're not in crisis. The embassy is gonna be interviewing, you know, thoroughly your documents, and if they don't see any assignment or facility where you're going, then it might be flagged as incomplete. Okay, so again, rushing can always lead to problem, and I recommend you, if you choose to go to sea, make sure that you know where you're going, because the problem with that is kung nakatali ka na biglang wala, that's the problem. If you look at the feedbacks also, if you see feedbacks that are saying that there was a delay, tanungin mo yung mga tao na bagong dating dito, when your priority date became current, did you have to wait for a long time before you were allowed to move forward with your embassy interview? Or were you allowed to, meron bang waiting period doon or continuous? Kasi usually, when the priority date becomes current and embassy interview date, kung tuloy-tuloy lang yan, they can do it in 3 months. So, there is no, kung umaabot sila ng 1 year na current na sila, tapos wala pa din silang embassy interview, most likely baka wala silang facility dito or baka may kulang yung documents nila. Kung tama naman sa nurse, completing documents, possibly the incomplete documents now falls on the immigration lawyers or the employer or the recruiter or whoever's preparing that. So, magtanong ka. Always ask about the staffing companies. Did you guys experience waiting time from the time that your current PD to embassy interview? Was it an extended period of time that you had to wait? If they say we had to wait like 1 year, that's a red flag for me. Okay? Which means ang dami pang nasa pipeline na hindi mabigyan ng trabaho. And it was funny because I saw one company posted, oh, we have like this hundreds of nurses now who became current with their priority date. But I was like, okay, becoming current in priority date is a great milestone. However, I know a lot of people from that same company who were not given embassy interview date or are allowed to set an embassy interview date because there's no facility assignment. So for me, I'm like, why are you praising like that, And ang dami nag-aantay dito na wala pang assignment. So again, two things that can happen. Direct hire can abandon you, terminate you, and look for a new job after that release paper, or you stick along with a contract that you don't know when it's gonna finish, when they're gonna find your job, and right now the sentiments of a lot of employers here in the United States is they're gearing away from temporary staffing because it's very expensive. Um, so yun lang ang sentiment ko dyan. Okay. Okay, another question. Kailan po ba na-issuehan ng Social Security number? I'm doing my Louisiana license endorsement po. I'm confused na po kasi natatakot po ako na hindi makakomply sa mga requirements before departure. As far as I know, Louisiana needs a Social Security before it gets activated, no? So, that's as far as I know. So, again, you will have to get your Social Security before that gets activated. And majority of the things that's happening right now is when your employer or agency actually submits those documents to the Department of State, during the consular processing, the visa processing, there's a form that they sign up there, and then maliit na box yun if you have been issued a social security or not. And they always check their no kasi bago ka pa lang, no? And then nakalagay doon sa baba, do you want us to assign you a social security? So it means hindi mo na kailangan pumunta ng social security office. It will be applied to you directly based from that Department of State form. So again, this is dependent on the processing of the Social Security. Usually, it will take about 3 weeks. To some, meron naman mabilis. Some of them have received their Social Security in a week, and I've heard averagely it's about 2 to 3 weeks. Less than a month. So, however, it's okay because by the time you arrived here, you're still adjusting to the time. Di ka makaka-work agad eh. No, you're not going to be able to work right away. So you will have time to look for a new apartment. You have to get settled down. You still have to go to onboarding. You have to go to HR. You have to go to occupational health. There's still a lot of things that you need to do, especially like opening a bank, getting your ID, state ID. So till then, just chill ka lang for the for the first week, no, and then if your social security arrives in 3 weeks, that's usually the normal process, and then submit that directly to the Louisiana. So I recommend you, if you want to get your license activated as fast as you can, make sure that all your Louisiana license application requirements are complete. Okay, complete na siya except for the social security. Okay, so yeah, be proactive in checking, and also there are you can always ask your HR if there are concerns, so hospital mo or wherever you're gonna go, they have HR department there that can help you. I'm pretty sure they have always knowledge on a lot of these things too. Okay, next question. I signed up with a direct hire last December 8th and submitted all the complete requirements with them, even the visa screen. Pero up until now, di pa din po na-file ang I-140 ko. It's been months now na aware naman po about retrogression. Medyo frustrating lang dahil nung interview wala silang dinisclose at first come first serve basis ang pagpasa pala nila ng paper sa USCIS. Tapos naging inactive po ang PWD. Nung naging active ang PWD nila noong January 2025, according to them, uunahin muna yung mga naunang nag-sign. Di ko po alam if kailan nila ibalak i-file yung papers ko. In fact, di ko po alam if mag-back out po ako or what, since I already signed a contract with them. Need help or insight about this. Okay. By the way, direct hire agency sila from Philippines. Well, thanks for sending your question. And a lot of people have heard of this, like hundreds of them actually last year also happened like this. More than a year na inantay, ang dami nila. I'm not making it any less painful, but I'm just saying that a lot of agencies, this is the problem, they don't disclose to you about their prevailing wage. Okay, so the first thing that you would have to ask is may mga nagastos ba sila sa'yo? If wala pa sila nagastos and you want to back out, and because there was no disclosure that you're not going to be filed right away, then you shouldn't be paying anything. Back out. And if the company is like asking you to pay something, review if those are reasonable, because ang puhunan lang nila laway eh. Right? So if yung laway, Philippine laway pa yan, how much is Philippine laway in the labor workforce right now? And I can say probably 200 pesos, 500 pesos, maybe generous na yon. 500 pesos laway. Di ba nga sahod ng tao dyan, paminsan 500 pesos in a day na yon, 8-hour shift. So imagine mo kung laway lang yung puhunan nila for 1 hour, that's not even 200 pesos. So if I were you, decide for this. There's already a lot of red flags. They were not transparent at the beginning. They're not going to be transparent in the middle of it. And they're not going to be transparent at the end of it. So for me, red flag at the beginning is a red flag all throughout the process. So I would definitely give you, let you decide for that. But for me, if there's a lot of red flags at the beginning, this is a no go for me. Um, However, if they're gonna guarantee you that they're gonna file your application in the next 3 months or 2 to 3 months, give them ultimatum is the next best option. If you don't file my I-140 in the next 2 to 3 months, I am backing out because you did not disclose to me that you don't have an active PWD. And also, number two, you did not disclose to me that this is a batching application. So batching means they all hired you all at the same time. They hired you 500 nurses, and then they didn't tell you that you're going to have to wait next year because you're batch four. Well, we didn't talk about like that, right? So always ask, is this application being batched, or is this application right now? And then I will have to submit it, and then you will find my I-140 right away. So again, batching is not a very good practice if it's not disclosed, okay? But batching is a good employer strategy so they won't get overwhelmed of the people coming in at the same time, because vacancy does not happen in one big time. Vacancy of jobs happen like consistently, like one here, two there, one there, here next month, another month, so vacancy of the job happen throughout the year, small vacancies, but there's no such thing as big vacancy that happen at all one time, except when COVID happened. Okay. All right. Going through question. Els, hello. Thanks for joining. Hello, ma'am. Okay na po ba yung $35 in rehab facility in Arizona? Els, I can see that you have a baby in your picture. So 35 usually is not enough for a family, It can provide you probably paycheck to paycheck scenario. However, if you have baby, you might want to get a better health insurance coverage, which is a more premium price per month. Usually, mga nasa 200 kung may family ka, may dependents ka, um, 200 per paycheck yun paminsan, or depends on the facility. Kung rehab facility, I would say the health insurance premium will a bit more costly than if you are an employee of a hospital. So $35 an hour might be able to get you, you know paycheck to paycheck situation. But if you want to stash emergency funds, not really. Arizona, initially I thought it was cheaper, but actually there's a lot of spots in Arizona that are very expensive. So depends on where you're going as well. So, however, rule of thumb, $35 rehab facility, you might be paying more. So you check of some criteria there. You have dependents, you have small kids, high risk for accidents, and 35, which is probably the minimum there. I would say might be a paycheck to paycheck if you have family. Okay, but if it's just you alone, might be doable. But with dependents and you're the sole provider, just a paycheck to paycheck scenario, you won't have money much for savings and retirement or emergency fund unless somebody adds an income to that. Maybe you do an overtime, or you have another household who can work. Okay. Thanks for your question, Ace. So next question, Joy. Ma'am, valid ba to buy out a contract kung physically exhausted ka na sa facility mo? Joy Grace, thanks for this question. No. As always, recommendation, we don't recommend like having the term called buyout contract, because there's no such thing if you're under that and you're the one who's involved in it. Okay, so you don't want to buy out the contract, because otherwise it's gonna look negative on you. You don't, it might impact your green card. No, you never know. So the right term for this is really termination of the contract. So again, it's like, because pag sinabing buy, it has a very negative connotation when you are under visa, under specific visa condition. It's like saying, I'm gonna go marry someone, and we have an agreement. I'm gonna buy that agreement now, so that I'm paying him $30,000 to marry me. So it can be like a fraud, a marriage fraud or a visa fraud. So again, buyout, please, everyone's advice. I don't recommend using the term. I recommend using the termination of contract. Okay. So is it valid? No, everybody's exhausted. Joy, unfortunately, we all know that nursing is a very physically taxing profession and emotionally draining situation. So Physically exhausted can happen to anyone. Not only like to rehab facility, long-term care. Physically exhausting can be anyone in ICU. Physically exhausting can be even like administrators who's been 24/7. So it's not really a valid reason to terminate your contract. Okay. However, if there are staffing problems in your facility, it's understaffed all the time, and you have documentation that you've raised concern because it's understaffed and it's putting your patients to risk, it's putting your license to risk. And number three, you've been addressing these concerns to your management repetitively, and they're not doing anything about it, you know. And there are situations that there were fall, there were negligence, and it's just unsafe working condition, then that can be a very valid reason why you are terminating the contract. No? So again, just mere fact of physically exhausted. I can be physically exhausted, no ER. And sometimes I'm a trauma nurse. Sometimes I work in the burn cases, and it's very hot. You know, I'm sweating. I'm like my whole scrub suit is like soaked already. It's physically exhausting. However, this is the life of a nurse, and especially in an acute care setting or long-term care setting. It's not grounds, it's not a valid grounds to terminate a contract. Okay, unless it's putting your license to risk or putting your health situation to risk or is unsafe working condition. But you need to present evidences of that what do you call it? So you need to present evidences of that. If you need to terminate your contract, you need to reach out to a lawyer, review your case. The more evidence that you've showed that unsafe working condition is not being addressed or corrected by your facility, then that can be a valid grounds. Okay, but you need a lot of written evidence or like actual facts that you can see, because you don't want to say he say she say thing. Okay, mahirap yung patunayan na he say she say. Mas madaling patunayan may actual evidence ka. All right, a couple more questions. All right, hold on for a second. Okay, tanong ko lang po sana kung sakali po bang hindi ko na ituloy ang pagpunta, kailangan po bang bayaran ng contract bond na 30,000? All right. This is a lot of nurses who are going through this, that they see in their contract that if they terminate their contract, they're going to pay 30,000. Well, if you're in the Philippines, you don't. Okay, again, but depends on what you signed. Majority of those people who signs contract or job offer has that wordings that if you don't finish your contract, you will be responsible to pay for the expenses incurred by your employer in bringing you over to the United States. So if there's a $30,000 there, it's a possibility that this $30,000 is the total cost, according to them, reasonable amount of money when they brought you to the United States. However, if you're still in the Philippines, this is not the cost. Okay, so again, please review your contracts. Make sure that you double check, because a bond is a different situation. So I don't know who you gave the bond to, or who's holding that, or is this only written? Because during my time, I was told to give a check, an actual check. Okay. So we realized that's not allowed here in the United States. It's illegal to ask for bond that is to issue to the recruiter outside United States as a contingency of a job. So please reach out to a lawyer to review your case, because majority of this, if I'm not mistaken, or if this is similar to other nurses who've asked me support to review their job offers, I have come across some of this that they are being told to pay 30,000 if they don't finish their contract. However, those are nakalagay lang naman doon, estimated expenses that are reasonable. That's the exact wording. You know, expenses incurred that are reasonable, and then you're agreeing that this is $30,000. So if you didn't get to the United States, that is not the cost. If you didn't get to the embassy interview, it's not the cost. If you didn't get to NVC stage, it's not the cost. Iba ang cost niyan. Okay? So, mas mababa. The sooner that you leave that employer or that agreement and it's less damage, then it's going to be less payment. Okay? Um, so, just final advice on that, please have your contract reviewed by a lawyer before you terminate it. Okay? Next question, ano po ang worst case scenario? May mga tips po ba kayo na pwedeng i-share para po mas maging buo ang loob ko sa pagpunta sa US na mabawasan ang takot ko para sa akin at sa aking lisensya? Um, I think she's pertaining to this, what do you call this one? Maybe she's reading a lot of, you know, messages or posting or news about United States that there might be, cases of malpractice, negligence. What's the worst case scenario is, we don't want to see a nurse committing a mistake, which is medical or clinical in relation, and then the family or the government sues you of criminal lawsuit. No, so that's the worst case scenario. You don't want that. Unfortunately, that had happened to a nurse in one of the hospital in Tennessee. Remember that she injected a medication and it didn't turn well to a patient. So there was a criminal case instead of a civil case that was put against her, and that's the worst case scenario. I mean, the case is worse, but of course, killing someone because of her negligence or malpractice is, I think, worse than a criminal case. Unfortunately, if you're a criminal case and a citizen of the United States, then you will have to face a criminal case, no, litigation. But if you are a green card holder and there is a criminal case against you during the time right now that the government is addressing um, immigrants or green card holders with criminal case to be deported first. So that is something that it's not a good thing. You're facing criminal case, and then you're also facing a deportation case. So yun lang yung ma-share ko sa'yo na worst scenario, which is hopefully hindi naman madaming ganyan, very very rare yan. But then you guys heard about the two guys in New Jersey that was accused of assault with a patient, with a resident, no? So they were found that I don't think they have legal status here in the United States. That's why they chose to be deported rather than going through that case, to fight that case. So those are the scenarios, an example. And for I know coming to the United States, actually, I would say majority of the time is, better scenario. And however, there are small cases, and I want you to look at those cases, use them as a learning ground to make sure that okay, these are the things I should avoid, and these are the things that I should be trying and helping myself get better each day, so I will not end up like that. Okay, and as I always say, never let your guards down, because any single time that you let your guards down in nursing or you become lax and lenient, there will always something that will happen. And there's a reason why our career path takes a bachelor's degree and a license, because this career path is not easy. Okay? So if you are scared to lose your license, make sure that you are not being lenient and lax with your practice, and make sure that you are strict with your practice. You're not following your colleagues saying, like, just do this. No, I'll take care of you. Don't do that. This is not a trusting career path. We're all professionals here, and we should be abiding by the rules and regulation, policies and procedures. Okay. So as long as you're doing the policy and you're following the policy and procedure of the hospital, and you're doing your best, performing yung practice mo in the best, in a prudent way. That's what we call it. Any prudent nurse would do, then do it. Okay. And make sure that it's following the policy and procedure of the hospital. Because if something happens and you're just following the policy and procedure of the hospital, then you should not be accountable, because that is now the employer's accountability. Okay, especially, I'm doing the policy and procedure. This is what the policy and procedure says, no? And this is also what any prudent nurse would do. And if something happens now because of that policy and procedure, then you are not violating anything against your employer. Okay, so this is something for them to realize. Hey, we might need to change our policy and procedure. Okay, because this is risky. Okay, so again, in the United States, just do your best that any prudent nurse would do, and and get yourself updated with the latest rules and regulations when it comes to clinical practices. Okay. Member of LEFORA here, just recently signed an offer letter po, but suddenly change of plans po. Wala po ako na-submit na docs, just the offer letter po. Is it still possible to back out po? Okay. Thanks for sending your question. A lot of people are in this situation. What I can say is, anytime you accepted an offer, it's a professional word that you're putting there that you are accepting it. Okay. However, some things can happen, and of course, we don't know what's going on in your life. And what you can do is, submit your offer of withdrawal. That's all you can do. Anytime that you are in a contract, you can terminate it anytime. However, it does not mean that you should be doing it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should be doing it, okay? Because there's a level of professionalism when you gave your word that you are accepting this. However, if there are like changes in the contract, let's say, okay, I signed this, and then later on they gave me another one, but it's totally different from the other one, or there are now new terms, added terms that I don't agree, what can I do? Can I still back out? Well, you have the option not to take that new contract and just say, if you do not enforce this, then I will back out. Okay. Because there now is a variable that had happened. There is an incident or a reason why are you backing out. But backing out from your promises just because you want to or just because you saw a better offer, that's not how things really work in the professional world. What you want to do before you sign a contract is make sure that you research everywhere. Mag-research ka muna, take time to sign. Don't sign anything right away. Just take time, give yourself time to sign. If you're not sure, if you're not ready to sign something in 5 days, tell that recruiter, I need more time. Can you give me another 1 week to decide for this? Okay, don't be pressured to sign anything. Professionally, you're not obligated to sign a contract within 1 day or 2 days. If somebody's making you or forcing you a or forcing you to sign a contract within 24 hours, definitely red flag, big red flag. If somebody's asking you to sign a contract and turn it to them within 48 hours, that is a red flag. Okay. If somebody's asking you to return a contract of 3 years in 3 days, that is a red flag. Okay. And if you ask, all we have to do is ask. If they tell you you need to return this document within 48 hours, you tell them, unfortunately, I cannot schedule a legal advisor within 48 hours. The soonest I can give you a response is within 2 weeks. Can you still accommodate me if I can return to you no later than 2 weeks? Okay, meron pa nga iba dyan, 1 month no? But if this is a very good job and they offer this to many, nagma-mass hiring sila, of course, then you assess yourself. Is this something that I want to lose? Maybe I should be proactive in reviewing this offer immediately. Okay, but however, if you're talking about a job offer that is high in turnover and they're hiring every year, there is no rush to do that. Okay, however, to answer your question, can you back out? You can back out anytime you want, but it does not mean that you can do it is the right thing to do or is it a professional thing to do. Okay, especially if you have no reason, because these people spend time in preparing you, preparing your interview, preparing your documents, and all of a sudden you say, wag na lang, no? So ubos oras ka. But it's always a courtesy to ask them. Right now there are things that's going on right now with my life. Give them a reason. If it's a valid good reason, of course they will acknowledge it. Hey, you know what, my parent just got diagnosed with this. I think I will have to defer my application to the United States because I will need to stay with my family member. So sobrang understandable naman yun. Okay, so but don't just sign today and then tomorrow I change my mind because I saw something better. Don't do that because that's very unprofessional. Okay, so again, nurses here are professionals in the United States. Okay, just saying that. All right, next question, Nicole. Hines. Hello, Nicole. Thanks for joining in YouTube. Any advice with newcomers and trying to build credit and keeping within a budget initial start, seeing that there is not really much funds? Nicole, thanks for your question and thanks for joining me. So, for newcomers, I would definitely advise you to start preparing the budget within about 3 months before arrival. Okay. Actually, when you sign that contract, you have to make sure that you've already, computed how much is your monthly income, and then you do your monthly taxes estimate. No, for newcomers as nurses, just give it about 20%, or about 20 to 25%. Set it aside the taxes, no, especially when you're going to states with taxes, because you're going to be paying federal tax, you're going to be paying state taxes, you might be paying county or city taxes or town taxes. They call it SALT, SALT, which means state and local taxes. Okay. And there's also called the Medicare and Social Security, which is accounted as a payroll taxes. And then you will also have to put money aside for of course, your housing, your food. So first thing you really want to do is, before you sign a new contract, see if that salary is enough for you. Majority of the job offers are based on a one income, no, unless you have experience and they give you higher amount, when maybe it's covering your dependents as well. But if you are coming here na nakalagay dyan is um, prevailing wage, majority of the time those are the minimum payment that the company can give you in that location. So most of the time it might be a little bit tight, for a person with a family. So what you want to do is see how who's coming. Is it only you or is it your family as well? If it's very tight, ask yourself now, can I come first and then they follow? Kung may family. If you're coming here without family, then that's totally fine. Budgeting is easy when you're single, but when you're coming here with a family, then you need to assess: is it a possibility to follow to join? Can my family follow to join while I, get myself settled for 2 to 3 months, and then they come after 3 months, no? Because after visa issuance, their family members are allowed to come naman, or I think 180 days if I'm not mistaken. No, so give yourself time. If the answer is no, I have to bring them now. Say now, you write down, research the housing cost, research the housing cost in that area, and then versus the amount of your income, and then see if another household member can help with another income. Okay. And then when it comes to building your credit score, ideally you want to start with applying in a credit, what do you call this one, a credit card company that might be affiliated with your employer. So if this is a big employer, ask them, do you have affiliation or partnership with a bank here in the United States or in this local area? In my situation before, so my hospital, they do have a partnership with the union, New York State Nurses Association. So then we applied to that bank that has partnership with the hospital and the Nurses Association or the Nurses Union, and they allow us, they approve us of credit card. So as if you can open a credit card as early as you can, that's already starting your building your credit history. Okay. Ideally, when you start, you just want to, accumulate debt for that month period and then pay it at the end. Okay, that's how you do at the beginning. So accumulate debt, and then during the month, put all your expenses there and then pay it at the end of the month. So make sure you don't miss that payment, and it's best to automatic pay that every month so you don't. So as soon as you get here in the United States, start opening credit card as early as you can. Start getting your driver's license as early as you can, because why driver's license? You're also accumulating your driving history, right? So when you buy a car, now your insurance's cost will also be impacted if you have longer history of driving. You don't need to have to own a car just to build driving history, and you don't need to be driving every day to build driving history. Okay, so when there are things that's called occasional drivers like me, before I applied my driver's license, and if I go on vacation, I would rent a car and drive. So that's the only time I would drive. because living in the city, we don't drive, we just use public transportation. Okay, so if you're really into budget, then there's a thing called also car insurance. If you're going to buy cars or loan a car, um, sometimes your insured driving history can lower down the cost of insurance. Okay, I mean all the time, but beginner not really. So what you want to do is reassess every 6 months. Okay, reassess every 6 months, apply for credit increase every 6 months, or if your salary changes, apply for a credit increase. Ideally every 6 months I put my alarm clock, or I put in a calendar to remind myself every 6 months apply for a credit increase. Okay, if they, it's a soft pull within the company naman. All right, Sheng, thanks for joining. Would you recommend writing an expedite request to NVC Pro? Do agencies usually request this for ORC hospital? Sheng, thanks for this question. The nurse can request that if you're doing DIY. The agency can also do that. Hospital usually not unless they are direct hire. If you don't have any agent in between you. So I do recommend that if you're close to having your priority date very close or current na. So I know a lot of people who did this process during the COVID, that they did expedite the request in NBC stage, and as soon as their PD got current, I mean it was current, right? So as soon as they're DQ'd, dire-diretso no? So it took them like 8 months to get here. So this is something that I would recommend you discussing with whoever's processing your immigration documents, your immigration lawyer or the agent or the employer. If it's a direct hire, then yes, there is a thing called expedite request. Okay, so look into that, especially if your priority date is current already. Okay, all right. Couple more questions. Gonna finish this in 5 minutes, hopefully. I talk too much. No. I'm currently 8 years in maternity ward. I passed my NCLEX last January 2024, but up to now, wala pa din ako employer. Laging walang interview for OB or maternity ward. Yeah. Unfortunately, OB and maternity ward labor delivery does not have a lot of opening. Unfortunately, here in the United States, so majority of those jobs that are being offered outside United States are med surg, ICU, ER. There's also psych, because I mean dialysis also is being offered because those are high turnover areas. Okay, operating room, OB ward, endoscopy, PACU, ambulatory surgery. Those are the area that has a lower turnover, which means the nurses tend to stay there longer, so they don't have a lot of opening. However, what you can do is if you're working with a staffing agency or a recruitment company, you can also try to look at, go to Indeed and go directly search their labor delivery, or maternity. Ang tawag dito is mother women, okay? Tama ba? Sorry, mother baby. Another baby. Mother baby department, labor delivery, okay? So those are the most common terms when you're trying to Google search for jobs. So look into that, labor delivery nurse or mother baby nurse. Go to Indeed and see if there's jobs out there. And then if you see a job posting directly by an employer, I recommend you talking to them directly and see if they can sponsor you from the Philippines. Believe mother babies might qualify for a special unit. If you have experience, maybe they would offer H1B as well to get you here sooner. So please reach out to the employer and ask them if they do sponsor or if they have immigration lawyers with them, and if they are not new to if they are new to the immigration or sponsorship, um, find an immigration lawyer, and maybe you can tag along with the immigration lawyer, take them to that employer. See, he's expert in immigration and sponsorship visas. Maybe you can talk to this immigration lawyer. Okay, so again, don't lose hope. There are jobs here for OB and maternity. Unfortunately, it's just not a lot. That's why it's not being offered there outside the United States, because it's easier to find med-surg nurses positions here in the US. Okay, that's why it's being offered there. Follow-up message. Ayoko na lumipat sa iba kasi nandito na yung puso ko sa maternity at nasanay na ako. Iniisip ko kung paano makausad tapos retrogression pa. Okay, have any idea na agency or employer na accept ang OB maternity? So, again, I mentioned to you that you can reach out directly to the employer if you cannot find jobs in direct hire, I mean direct placement agencies or staffing agencies. What you want to do is go look on the Indeed and look for that maternity, mother baby labor delivery. Okay. Mm, okay. Next question. Under po ako ng and this is an agency, staffing agency, and naghintay po ako ma-file yung I-140 ko. Last Feb 2024 pa po sila nag-inform na okay na labor cert. Then the next step will be I-140. Almost 3 years na po waiting. Oh my God. Well, why are you waiting 3 years? I mean, Feb 2024 was just last year, no? So I'm thinking that maybe when you started the process of coming to the United States, when you're applying for let's say NCLEX, I would think that that's what you mean, that you're waiting or you're processing, right? So anyway, unfortunately, this is a lot of problem of a lot of agencies do not disclose when they have that labor certificate. Just for everybody's knowledge, labor certificate is the first step before that employer can offer you the job and sponsor you. Without the labor certificate and without that prevailing wage, a prevailing wage determination is a requirement of the labor cert. Okay, again, dito mo tayo. Labor cert, sorry, prevailing wage application, and then labor cert. And then after labor cert, that's the time they can file your I-140. Without that, this and this, they cannot do the I-140. Okay? So just for everybody, it's like saying the licensing cannot give you a nursing license because you are missing English exam, right? So it's the same thing. You cannot apply for a job. This is the job without you doing your English exam, getting your license activated, and now applying for a job. Okay, so it's the same process, similar process. Employer has to file for prevailing wage determination, and then labor certificate will be issued, and then that's the time they can sponsor I-140. If the staffing company did not disclose to you that they don't have certificate of labor or they have no prevailing wage, they did not disclose that to you, and they promise you they're going to sponsor you right away, then that may be a problem with non-disclosure or misrepresentation, lalo na if they told you you have a job and we're going to sponsor you right away. Okay, so what are you going to do is you have to discuss this with your agency, that give them the time frame that you're only willing to wait for them up to this certain time. If they cannot give you a promise or a guarantee that they will sponsor you, then you move forward to a different company. And the grounds for your action is due to the fact that they did not disclose to you that they don't have a prevailing wage or a labor certificate. Okay. Okay, so anyway, if you're waiting for 3 years, that's really a long wait, and I don't recommend you staying there anymore, because if they're not transparent right now, they're not going to be transparent again in the middle, and they're not going to be transparent again at the end. Okay, there's a thing called fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? Alright, so next, makakabalita lang po sana, since Trump is the new president, I think hindi niya gusto mag-LGBTQ. Affected po ba yung mga may same-sex marriage tapos may PD na? Kahit medyo matagal, hindi po current. So this is a question regarding LGBT communities, if it's gonna impact your processing to the United States. The answer is no, it's not going to impact, due to the fact that it is a federal law that they recognize same-sex marriage. Okay, so as long as the federal department, the USCIS, recognizes same-sex marriage, then as of now, it will not impact that. Okay, unless there is an executive order, which is going to be a process again before it gets into effect, or may be challenged by the Department of Justice. So again, even if Trump is the president and he wants to change a lot of things, there's a process here in the United States when things can be changed. And if the changes does not really or violates something, or the president will say, we're going to change this, but it's the Department of Justice states that you can't do this, then the Department of Justice can block some of the things. So that's a good thing about the government right now is, there's still checks and balance that's happening. I don't want to go too political. That's why I'm in nursing, because I don't like politics. However, there's checks and balances in the United States. So that's where the other government branch, the back, I say there's the judicial branch, there's executive branch, and there's a legislative branch of the government. So there's a checks and balance. So that's something that I don't think is gonna impact um, because it's a federally recognized at this point. Okay, so just no worries about that. Okay. um, Let me see the other things. I'm a bit anxious about signing any contracts. I want to make sure I don't miss any important details. I'm reaching out to you in good faith to ask if you know someone knowledgeable about contracts, whom I could consult. Would an immigration lawyer be the right person for this? If so, could you recommend a reliable, preferably cost-effective immigration lawyer who can review my contract? So, thank you so much for this question. So, a lot of people, a lot of nurses would think that if they receive a job offer, it's only a lawyer who can look and review their contract. That is incorrect. So a person that you take as an advisor, um, not necessarily a lawyer, can also help you review that job offer. However, if there's deep legal jargons, then of course you might need to have a lawyer review it, especially if that advisor is not familiar with the U.S. Rules and regulation, or the U.S. ways, or how a job offer looks like in the United States. So what you want to do is anybody who's knowledgeable in reviewing an offer, especially in that location where you're going, it's okay to review it. Kasi hindi ka pa naman pumirma dyan sa contract na yan, no? So you're still reviewing. So when you're reviewing something, then you can still have someone review that. It can be anybody. It can be your mom or dad that is knowledgeable and understanding, that. Anybody who's been here in the United States, who are coach, mentor, any executive, nurse leader, nurse management, who's familiar with those job offers, those can review that, not necessarily immigration lawyer. However, if there are deep immigration details pertaining to a document that's being asked for you to sign, then of course you might want to get an immigration lawyer. If there are deep labor or labor legal jargons, like let's say arbitrations, mga ganon. So these are the things that you might want to also consider having somebody like a labor lawyer look at. No, mamili ka. It can be immigration lawyer, it can be labor lawyer, it can be a dapat U.S. labor lawyer, because if the job is here in the United States, then you have to have someone who's knowledgeable in U.S. labor. Um, and then also you can consider a lawyer within the state where you're going, because labor laws can vary state to state. Again, anybody can be helping you review your contract. However, when you sign that, then it's going to be limited who you can show that, because now you're bound by confidentiality. If there is confidentiality in that contract, then you are bound by that legal condition of called confidentiality. So again, at the beginning, if you have not signed a job offer, you can have anybody review it, not necessarily an immigration lawyer or labor lawyer or a lawyer, period. However, anybody that you think that can help you make a good decision and educate you. It can be one person, two-person, or three-person. No, so anybody can help you as long as those people are helping you to make an informed decision on that. But if you're just sharing it primarily because you want to be sharing it because marites sila, so if just saying it to marites, you want to just compare each other. So that's not gonna be helpful and not right to do it. Okay, it's not ethical to do it either. But ethically, you can have someone review job offer without a law background, as long as they're expert and they're gonna use it for your decision making process. Okay. um, Cost effective is cost is anytime between 150 to 500, okay, to review that. Sometimes cheaper, no, 150 to 250. So just to review if there are any red flags on those contracts, okay, or is anything that needs to be negotiated. So again, in the state where you're going will be the good, the right person, the best person, okay. Newbie po ako sa US, nag-a-apply po ako sa dalawang employer. Employer 1 po is private, siya nasa 46 per hour offer, pero wala pang night differential, which is 15% additional, and may sign-in bonus. 10 bed capacity, geriatric mental health. Okay. The other one is employer number 2, which is 57 hourly. Walang night differential, walang sign-in bonus, and state hospital. All right. So which one is better here? I cannot really tell. So the best way, I mean, if I'm comparing it salary to salary, well, this one with the 757 an hour might come stronger. And also this one, and the sign-in bonus can be how much, how much is the sign-in bonus? If we're talking about sign-in bonus that is, $2,000, I think the employer B, when it comes to hourly rate, will still come out better. But we're talking about, oh, there's going to be 20,000 sign-in bonus or 10,000 bonus, which is very impactful. Then I might consider, A, but majority of the sign-in bonus here in the United States have a condition, like you have to finish this amount of time first, or you have to do this first before you're going to be eligible for sign-in bonus. Or if you don't finish your contract, then you will have to pay back that sign-in bonus, no? So again, for me, sign-in bonus are good only if it's not meant to be a trap. Okay, so again, sign-in bonus is good if it's not meant to be a trap, because there are also sign-in bonus here as high as $50,000, but when you look at the salary, they reduce it, and the quality of the working conditions very poor. So what is a signing bonus if you're going to quit anyway? And here, 57 hour, what is 757 hour if the working conditions and the benefits is very poor? So you have to consider, number one is the benefits. What are the other benefits? How much money are you going to be paying for your health insurance? Is there retirement matching? Is there a sick time? How much is the sick time? How many is the sick leave, or vacation? It doesn't make sense that the other one is $1,000 more, but it's giving you it's not giving you enough vacation, right? So walang vacation. So, well, kaya mataas kasi tinabaho mo yung trabaho na dapat bakasyon ka, no? So those are the things that you need to consider. It's not a straight answer, so there's a lot of things that you need to look at first. Just those variables not going to tell me anything right now. All right. But if this hospital has a lot of overtime, then okay, maybe we can talk. I'll take the 57 hour, and then the overtime will be higher. And then it's a state hospital, so maybe the benefits are good. And I am trying to save as much money as I can. Okay? And tolerable naman yung working condition, then I'll go for that. You know, if my money is my driving force, maybe I'll go here, but I have to look at the benefits. Okay? And then also I have to consider this other one if they have overtime, if money is my goal. All right. Next question. Signed contract with staffing agency, sponsored NCLEX and processing. The form from school was unsuccessful. I didn't pursue due to this issue for Florida Board of Nursing. The demand now is 400. How to settle? Okay, I think the situation here is that person signed a contract with staffing agency, and then they were processing his application. Um, and during that time that he was asking to be giving his credentials from the school, it was unsuccessful, no? For I don't know what reason, whose fault it is, but then at the end, he did not pursue this anymore. And the agency is demanding him to pay back 400. How to settle? So the first question is, what is the 400 for? Did the agency paid for CES or credentials evaluation? Did the agency paid for any review or NCLEX processing fees? Where is this 400 coming from? So first things first, you need to ask the employer, or whoever that is asking 400, what is the 400 for, and is there a breakdown for this? How did we come up with the 400? If they paid for something that is reasonable and you can validate that they actually did that service for you, then what you want to do is, okay, then you pay them and ask them, what is the process in settling this, and can I get a release letter after after settling this demand of $400? If they're gonna say that, we're not gonna give you a release letter, but you have to pay, is there a receipt of this? it's very shady if they're not going to give you a release letter. So I do recommend that to make sure that they're agreeing that they're going to give you a release letter first before you pay anything if those amount is valid. Okay? So you have something na pangahawakan, hindi ka habulin later on. And make sure that person demanding you is really from that agency or that employer. You don't want to be talking with, just a frontliner, a frontline recruiter, and the whole company has no knowledge about you paying that recruiter, and maybe that company really didn't ask for that. So make sure that you're talking with the legal team on this. Okay? Or I rarely would advise anybody to give a demand of a recruiter. It has to make sure that it's known to the internal company, okay? Yung mga executives, or if it's a small company, alam yan dapat ng CEO, hindi lang ng headhunter or recruiter. Because it's very dangerous to give money and you didn't get any release letter. Okay. Nicole Haynes, can we do side jobs to supplement income? Nicole, thanks for your question again. Yes, you can. Majority of nurses in here do supplemental jobs. However, first things first, if you have a non-compete clause in your contract, then you need to talk with the employer. Okay. A lot of employers here do a lot, they allow. You have to review your contract. If says there you cannot provide the same service, nursing service within the area, then okay, so you're just talking about nursing service, no? Then I can do business. Maybe I know how to shoot pictures, no? I should take photography, so maybe I can do photography jobs on the side. So if it's my non-compete clause only says that I cannot provide service as a nurse, then I can do business. I can sell soda outside, I can sell ice, I can sell juice outside, I can go out and sell coconut juice, coconut husk, right? um so if it says in your non-compete clause that you cannot do anything outside, you know that we are the only employer here, and if you're EB3, you can negotiate this with your employer to make sure that you're not breaking any contract. A lot of employers will allow you as long as you promise that it will not hinder or prevent you from fulfilling your obligation with them. So as for me, I came here in the United States as an EB3 green card holder. So I did side job. I did business. I rented my car out. I worked on a travel nurse contract, while finishing my 3 years contract in that hospital. I did per diem. I did side jobs. So I did a lot of side jobs to supplement my income. As long as I'm still reporting to that job, I don't call out in my original job. And my management knows that I'm only working their weekends, and then I'm working outside. I'm also like doing my school back then. So yes, you can do that, but if there is non-compete clause, you need to talk with your employer to give you a waiver, or let you sign an agreement that you are allowed to go work outside as long as you're not interfering with your current job. However, it does not apply to H-1B visas, because H-1B or other visas are specific to their employer. Okay, their visa is again specific to that. So for EB3 green card, yes, you can, but for other visas, this is something that you want to discuss with your immigration lawyer and your employer to verify if these are accurate, that you can work somewhere else, because a lot of H-1B, they are limited on the people or the employer that they can work with. No, so please review this with the immigration lawyer if you're not green card holder. And then, good morning, Kay. Good morning, Anna. Thanks for joining me. Are you still awake? Wow. All right. Nicole, does each board of nursing differ with their rules and law? Yes, Nicole. Different state, different board of nursing have their own rules and regulation and Nurse Practice Act. So again, each board of nursing have different Nurse Practice Act. Even though there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences still. Okay, so before you go to a new state and you want to practice as a nurse there, just review the Nurse Practice Act. I know it's a long, a long one, but just overview it, go overview if you have time, just review it just to be safe, because we have a lot of nurses who went from state to state, travel nurses, and then they're doing something that they said, oh, this is what we do there. Well, that is really a dangerous word when you say, I'm a traveling nurse. One thing you will never ever say is, this is how we do it there. Okay, this is what I'm used to do. Okay, you cannot say that word if you're in a new place, new location, and even if you're in the same state, Nicole. Hospital policy and procedure can still differ. In that hospital, maybe you can do this, maybe in this hospital you cannot. So the best thing to do is, if you don't have for Nurse Practice Act review, what you want to do is make sure that you read the policy and procedure of your facility. Okay, and there's also nurse educators who can help you and guide you throughout the process of your learning in that new institution. Okay, so just to save your butt all the time, follow the policy and procedure of that hospital where you're working. Do not base your experience somewhere else that is very different from where you are right now. Okay, so um, please follow that, because a lot of people get in trouble with that with travel nursing. Okay, you don't want to be terminated on your first month in the United States. Hope that helped, Nicole. Well, thank you for your knowledge, and you should do more live sessions. Yes, I am doing some of that. I think this is session 7 already, so I session 8. We'll try to do more. There's a lot of questions coming in into my inbox. Again, if you have sent me message, and I have not gotten back to you, it only means that there's a person ahead of you, and I'm still processing those questions, and I will get to your questions as soon as I can. If I will be answering your question, and I will say I'll answer this question in my next session. It will be the next one, the next day. Okay, so, or actually, no, if it's a weekend, I don't do sessions. So I wait for the Mondays, so business hours. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. And I hope you guys learn a lot from these sessions. As always, these are all non-professional legal advices, and these are non-professional financial advices. These are all general information from my experiences and the experiences that were shared in LEFORA, Filipino Nurse to US. If you have not been, if you're not part of it, if you're not familiar with LEFORA, Filipino Nurse to US, it is the largest Filipino nurse, not only Filipino, we welcome all actually, but it was just called like that, Filipino Nurse to US now. But we'll welcome everybody from around the globe to join us if you think that those information are very helpful for you. And we encourage everyone who has family or friends who are interested in learning about migrating to the United States as a nurse, or just literally just moving, even if you're just moving to the United States, even if you're not a nurse and you think this information are very helpful, please feel free to share it to them. Okay, bye everyone, have a good day and have a nice weekend to all. Bye bye.